That's very
All right. Well,
Got it.
I think that we're all here that I know is trying to get in, so we might as well get started.
Hi,
Welcome,
Muriel.
welcome all of you, and welcome Dewey Nell to
Neil.
our
That's okay.
our. Sorry,
It's kneeled.
Neiled. Sorry.
Yeah, like kneel down and prayed.
Well, welcome in any case, and look forward to seeing your pictures and hearing your stories and everything else. So I'll
Great.
turn it over to you.
Wow. Okay. So hi, everybody. Zach asked me to do a little bit of talking about the calendar, the waterfall calendar of the Finger Lakes, and I've been doing this for 19 years. We could start with a few images, maybe, and then we could come back to just me talking. Right? Should we start with that, Zach? Zach's got all the images there. So this is a poster that I've presented because it's really cool to see all 19 calendar covers all at one time. Represents a lot of work. And the first one is in the upper right. I started making them in 2004. And you'll see various different images on the covers. Mostly you'll see a lot of Taganic Falls on the cover because that's, the most interesting one and one we're most proud of, like locally, because it's a straight drop falls of 215 feet. And of course, it's 33 feet taller than Niagara Falls. Let's go to the next image just while we're doing through images. And that's the current calendar. Many of you have already the calendar. Is that true? Raise hands. There's Zach's got one. Okay, good. Leslie's got one and Melissa has one. Janie, I can't see your face now. Anyway, over the years, I have transitioned from one look of the calendar to another, and it's been quite a project for 19 years, sticking it out, and it seems to be it's a necessary thing because everybody loves our waterfalls and not only just local people, but I found that people all over the country, all over the world, in fact, order them online and remember when they lived here. Let's say they were born here, they lived here when they were going to college or something. And so I get in touch with these people, and from year to year, I'm getting encouraged to keep doing the project. It's quite an effort because not only do you have to take the photos, you have to contact the designer, get the designer to put the copy with the images and design the grids, and the grids have changed over the years. And let's take another look at the next picture. I think you're going to see the first ever cover that I started with. So, wow, big difference, right? From the last picture to this one. This is the first ever waterfalls of the Finger Lakes calendar. It was called Waterfalls Near Ithaca, New York, back when I first started it. It came from an idea from a printer friend of mine. I photographed his wedding, and he says, well, let's do a calendar with all your pictures. And I goes, okay, but I never did anything for years and years. And finally I said, I've got quite a collection. I took a bunch of pictures of the waterfalls thinking I was going to move out of Ithaca. I know, perish the thought. I'm never leaving Ithaca. I love it here too much. But I had this weak moment and thought that I was going to leave. So let me make sure I can get some great pictures of everything before I go. Well, I did that, and they were so amazing that that we said we have to do a calendar. I had 5, 6 pictures that were just incredible. And this is, well, I just got to go 6 more and you're good to go. You got it. So let's go to the next photo, Zach. I think it's of, so this is the cover of the 2012 calendar. And I got inspired by somebody who mentioned, maybe you should, more than just one picture on the cover, try several pictures. So I said, well, this is a good idea because these 4 photos were in the calendar. Everybody recognize where some of these pictures are? Probably a couple of them, right? That's Teganic on the upper left. That's Ithaca Falls on the upper right. That's Letchworth from the air on the lower left. That's an aerial shot in the fall of Middle Letchworth Falls. Maybe some of you know where Letchworth is. Yes, raise hands. Yeah, good. And yeah, and some of you have probably been there. And on the right, that's a winter shot of Watkins Glen area. And man, that's dangerous to be in there in the wintertime. In fact, it's forbidden. But I took a chance one year and went in there. And I love the photos, and people do love them, even though it's, you might say, somewhat illegal to go in there. But I brought this to the Rotary Club of Watkins Glen when I showed them I had this picture, and I told them, I says, I know it's not permitted to go in there, but a lot of them giggled when I said that. So I felt this, they probably felt it was okay since they giggled at it. What's the next photo? It's another cover, I think, for the next maybe a couple of years later. So this is 2 years later. This is the 2014 calendar, and I graduated from 4 pictures in 4 different quadrants to another compositional endeavor, and that is to do Lucifer Falls here in Ithaca, all the way from corner to corner, and then another view of Watkins Glen in the upper left, a view of Letchworth Middle Falls from the ground in the upper right, if you will, and then Ithaca Falls in the fall at the bottom. So it's just been a lot of fun to try to come up with a creative sequence of photos, and then you can see that the water even runs through the letters. Pretty cool, huh? Anybody have this calendar, by the way? Anybody collect calendars? No. Some people do. Let's go to the next view, Zach. Okay, so this is the calendar from 2021. And rather than just put the anniversary of the calendar on the cover, I decided to look up what is an 18th anniversary notable image. And apparently it's the sunflower. I don't know why. I found that online someplace. So I put a sunflower in the corner for the 18th anniversary calendar. And I had a centerfold in here, a center poster, and it's a horizontal fall picture of Ithaca Falls, and right near where Zach lives. So when you're done with the calendar, the center comes out, unstaple it, and put that on your wall, and you got this keepsake. So that's been a kind of a cool thing to do. Since about 2014, I started with that. Okay, let's move on to the next image.
Technical question for you.
Please.
I've noticed a couple different strategies for photographing water.
Right.
Waterfalls. You can either go with a fast shutter speed and get a crisp picture of the water, or slow it down and have more of a flowing sense. Do you have a favorite?
Oh, yeah.
And how do you decide what you're going to do?
You know, when I'm photographing at a location, I will try both sequences, and I'll try a variety of different shutter speeds. There is an optimum shutter speed to actually get the flow of water here. I don't remember what the shutter speed was. I could look it up. I don't have that information handy right now, but I would guess it's somewhere in the area of a 15th or a 1/8 of a second or something like that. And yeah, the slower the shutter speed, the more flow of water you get. I photographed Ithaca Falls at night by moonlight, and I don't have that image here this time. So that's the next time we do this, I'll show you that one. That was like 3 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. And wow, that water doesn't even look like water. It looks like cloth. And the choice I make, it depends on the kind of effect I think I want to go for. Depending upon how much light there is when I take the photos, there's a picture on this current calendar of Ithaca, of Teganic Falls, Lower Falls, and it's a high shutter speed, and it tells you in the calendar. I actually put the information in there now to show anybody who's a photophile who wants to note what that was. like which camera, what lens, what shutter speed, aperture setting, time of day, ISO, focal length, all those things that people would like to know if you're into the photo game. So I think I used a really high shutter speed so you could actually see the droplets and sparkles of water. It's fun to me to see that. Not every time, but some of the time, most of the time. I don't know. It depends on my mood. As an artist, I kind of change my perspective from time to time. It just kind of however it feels best to me. And then there's, of course, there's certain technical things I'm going for when I'm shooting, but oftentimes I try to go with a feeling of what I feel when I'm there, how the weather is, what it looks like, the compositional choices I've made when I get there. It's kind of a thing. It's hard to be teaching some of that, but you can go out with a group of people to a location and show them what I'm thinking about, what I'm doing when I'm shooting, and that people can learn from that. Question answered? Okay, the next view is one of the early grids of the calendar. Very plain, very uninteresting, so to speak, but you know, because the calendar has local pictures of waterfalls and everybody loves those, the grid didn't seem to be too important in those days. I think I don't even believe I even paid a designer to do this calendar this year. I had the people at the printing company, the pre-press guys, just like put this together, and it was fine because all I really wanted to have was a calendar that I could sell to people who really wanted to have the images of local Ithaca, because there doesn't seem to be anybody that was doing it. It's quite a lot of work to do. And so let's move on to the next one. I think this is another picture of another grid. Yeah, this is the first grid that in '08 that I actually put a ghosted image of the calendar picture at the top behind the grid. So it got a little more artistic creativity going on. I think I had a designer in there helping me do this, and I added a real photo at the bottom. Question? I heard some speaking in the background, and maybe somebody's just, anyway. So when I showed this around to a Barnes and Noble store in I think it was Syracuse, they liked it so much, and they sent it to their regional manager, and the regional manager took it to the buyer in New York City. The buyer in New York City called me up and says, "Wow, this is pretty. I can see the ghosted image behind the grid. We should put this in our stores." So they did. 2008 was the first year that Barnes and Noble had carried them. They didn't carry a lot. They just carried them in the Finger Lakes region. They didn't carry them all over the country. But that was a coup for me to actually have Barnes and Noble be one of the vendors that carried them in their store. Thank you. Clapping. Good for me. Good for the calendar. Okay, the next picture is going to be another grid from a later calendar. We decided to go without the ghosted image because, you know, you get different opinions out there. I listen to them and I try to see if they make sense. And I paid a designer a lot of money for this one. He uses very fancy font for the months and also for the cover, and big numbers. Not a lot of room to put things in the boxes because the numbers are taking up a great deal of the space. But this was his idea, so I went with it because he didn't really want to change because of my opinion. So I went with it. So I like it. The big numbers, the big font with the month was fun. I love the way that looks. I think he said it's a French font called Bergère or something of that nature. And the next one is going to be another grid that also has the ghosted image behind it and the addition of more than one additional image in the grid. And I used a kind of a blurry edge around them, and it kind of has an artistic appeal, plus a new different font for the name of the month. So it's like every year I come up with these new ideas. It's kind of something I think about over the months between the time that the calendar comes out and the time I have to put together the next one. And you know, I talk to different designers, I talk to different people, I look at different fonts, and I work closely with a designer. I don't design it all myself, but I have these ideas, I input them and then a designer takes my ideas and creates something that actually can work for the presses. The next picture is a more recent grid. Again, we're going without the ghosted image, so the people can write in the boxes. The numbers are smaller. People have more room to write things in. I think that's an important thing for people who have a calendar like this, a wall calendar. They want to use it to make dates with people and make reservations and write them down somewhere where they can look at them every day. One year I left out the 2 months at the bottom, you know, where it says the previous month and the next month. That was not a good idea. I put those back in the next year. It's kind of fun to see how things move one year to year. You kind of subtract things, add things, and see what works, see what doesn't work. Let's go to the next one. I think the next one is the current year's grid. Yeah, so this is 2022's calendar. I used a kind of a gray parchment look on this one. I wanted to go with a yellowish parchment. The designer says, try the gray. I think it'll go better. I says, okay, I'll go with what you're suggesting. This is my handwriting on the name of the month and on the numbers. That's my own hand. I did the writing and then she made it into a font for her computer. So it kind of gives it a little more of an artistic feel with that, I think. She also wanted to add the birthstones in the month. I got a call from one of my online purchasers, and she says, "Oh, I like the pictures in the grid." Oh, you do? Well, okay. My designer talked me into removing the photos from the grid, and so now they're in the center poster, which you will see later as we talk about center posters. I think we're going to talk about center posters next. So let's go ahead and talk about those, Zach. There's another picture. So in what year was this one? This was in 2014. I wanted to do a center poster. And if I chose one for the center poster, I would leave off 2 of the other regions of people that buy the calendar. Like this is Watkins Glen on the left, GIAC, obviously our region, in the center, and then on the right is Letchworth, which is the western part of our Finger Lakes region. So I wanted to satisfy all 3 regions of the Finger Lakes with a poster. So I had equal number of posters printed to insert into the calendar. So it was folded in half, of course, and you'd open it up when you got the calendar home, and you'd put that poster on the wall. If you were from Watkins Glen, you'd have the Watkins Glen picture. If you were from Ithaca area, you'd have the GIAC. If you were from the western part of the state, you'd have the Letchworth Falls series. Now, that's all 3 Letchworth waterfalls, if you can see that close enough. Upper, middle, and lower. And the middle and lower falls are about 1.5 miles from each other. But this makes a really interesting coordination of all 3 pictures. So I did that year. That was fun, trying to keep those straight and keep those distributed. And I do the distribution myself. I go out to the various stores and see if they'd like to carry it in their store. I go to gift stores, wineries, bookstores, you name it. I also have a distributor, thank you. And this is the next poster that I featured. Actually, this is the one that I featured in the calendar for, let's see, what year was that? That was also 2014. Guess so. Anyhow, you see the person in the stream bed there. Of course, I'm in the stream bed taking the photo, or from the bridge, I think. Unfortunately, the local Ithaca Tourist Visitor Center objected to this person in the stream bed. They want to make sure people don't walk off of the trail and into the stream bed. So on every calendar, I designed a very elaborate and just decorative sticker to put over that person. That was kind of funny. I don't know if anybody's laughing, but it was funny because it was a lot of work to every time they ordered a case of 60 calendars to then go into every one and sticker over that person with a very elaborate decorative label that said I think it said Trumansburg, New York. I don't remember what I should remember that, but I had a gold thing with sun rays coming out. It was quite lovely. It looked like it was supposed to be there. Um, it wasn't, but that's what it was for them. What's the next one, Zach? We got another center poster, and this is the center poster from the current 2022 calendar. So rather than put the photos like these panorama photos in the grids, they became part of the center poster, which in fact they make it up bigger. They're bigger because of that. And I can do some verticals too, because you can't do verticals in a grid where there's only horizontal spaces available. So I love the compositional work here. You got some verticals with some squares with some horizontals, and had a lot of fun creating this one. Okay, let's go to the next one, which is the most important part about a calendar. Seems it's a marketing piece, is the back cover. And because that shows what's in the calendar. It shows the grid, the way the grid looks, so they have room to write things in. And of course, it's got the price and the scan codes. But this year, it was the first year that I decided to use a map showing where the waterfalls are in the Finger Lakes region. So this is like a whole map of the Finger Lakes region, starting from northern New York State, where it borders Lake Ontario, down to the border where it borders Pennsylvania. And the colored dots showing the numbers of the January is right in Watkins Glen, and you'll see it down there. And it was pretty good. My designer decided she wanted to, rather than use a copyrighted map, she wanted to design one herself so that we wouldn't get dinged for a copyright infringement. Well, it turns out nobody cares. But that's what we did this year. And we can move on to the next iteration of back covers. Back covers have different flavors. This one has got a bigger map in the very center. So capitalizing, you might say, on the map. The photos, I wanted to have them a little more scumbled in there with where they are and what their name is, but yet kind of on their own and kind of looks like they're randomly placed. And they're kind of fun this way. I like the fun look of the arrangement. And you also have the grid and the extra photos that are on the grids listed there, so people can say, okay, now I know what's in the calendar. I can see it right there. And there's a picture of the crazy photographer with his big old Kodak camera from 1920 that I don't use, by the way, but it makes a great image of history of photography. Let's go on to the next back cover, and this one is probably from getting the map down even smaller and bigger pictures. Still have the grid, extra photos. This was the first year that COVID was upon us, and I wanted to say something about United States. So I put a American flag in there and something about the fact that they're sold in many 40 states and all over the world as well. And then the next back cover is where we see that the map is no longer on the calendar. We decided to make the pictures as big as possible, which doesn't leave much room for a map. I leave the white area in the lower right-hand corner for certain versions of the calendar that I make up afterward. Is a custom calendar with a special label that is advertising for a corporation who buys them in advance prior to printing. Others buy them later, but I produce them custom so that they can hand these out to customers, and the gift becomes the calendar, and their advertising is on the back cover and also on every grid space every month. And the next picture is going to be so currently I have a show at the Trip Hammer Ithaca Bakery Collegetown Bagels restaurant with every photo from the calendar, in addition to many others that I've put together. There's about maybe about 16 pictures in all, I think, in there. One is a really cool one in the center on left. You'll see there's 108 photos from the Finger Lakes waterfalls in square, and it's a three-dimensional piece that has an interesting layout that gives depth. It's all behind glass, but it's got a dimensionality to it that's kind of interesting. You have to see it to know what I'm talking about. The photos come out in relief. It's my attempt at making 3D out of 2-dimensional images. So that's a show that's available to see. The pictures are much, much larger than they are on the calendar. They're framed and matted. And oh, Zach's zooming in on them. Thanks. The next one should show a big framed photo that I had when I did a show at the Seward House in Auburn. Seward House is a big antique museum based on Secretary of State Seward, who was Secretary of State during Lincoln's presidency, and he was responsible for us purchasing Alaska from USSR. And this picture I put in this big frame. This frame is a family heirloom, you might say, and I substituted a painting that my grandfather had in it with one of my photos, and this was fun. So I show my pictures in various different ways I frame them. This was one very, very elaborate one. I had fun with this. This isn't at the Trip Hammer location right now, but I could put it there. I just thought of that. It's very heavy. It's very big, as you can imagine. This thing is about, I don't know, 4 feet wide. I think it weighs about 25, 30 pounds. And not fun to carry around, but when it's visible, it's gorgeous. Anyway, the next one is going to be some pictures of the current calendar. And this is a variation of the cover shot that's in the calendar for 2022. And the next one should be the aerial shot of GIAC Falls. This is an especially beautiful image I love. I don't use a drone. Currently, I'm still flying around in an airplane. I have a little friend who's got a Cessna 172. It's a small aircraft. It looks like you put it on like a jacket because it's so tiny. It actually can fit 3 or 4 people, but I'm in the passenger seat on the right, like a co-pilot seat. We fly without the door, and I'm pointing the camera down and around at all different angles because the door's off. I just have the seatbelt keeping me in. But this shows, you know, cool things. I can see the gorge, you can see the water, you can see the road, and the beautiful fall time of year, which we adore around here. The next picture is going to be a picture of High Falls in Rochester, winter time. Happened to catch sun rays, creating a little rainbow effect. And the train going across on the railroad track above the falls. So we don't see waterfalls in an inner city area around here, but up in Rochester, that's the big deal. They created electricity from this falls, the fall of the water, for many years until they created power another way. And that helps to sell a lot of calendars in that region of the state, not just in Rochester, but in Letchworth Park and other western areas. So, and plus it's good for Ithaca to see that there's waterfalls other than just around here, I think. So the next one is going to be the lower falls from Letchworth. That's a really wide waterfall. And it kind of is a diagonally oriented falls through the stream. And it's, as I said before, it's a half a mile or more from the middle falls. So there's 3 major waterfalls, and they all run north. The Genesee River flows north into Rochester. And at the very end of this 14-mile-long Letchworth Park, there's a dam, a 200-foot dam, I believe, maybe a 150-foot dam that prevents the water from flooding the city of Rochester during spring melts. That's an interesting feature of Letchworth Park. I'm rambling on here, but I wanted to get through the images and get to your questions at the end if you have any. Let's move on to the next one, which is going to be a picture of Cavern Cascade at Watkins Glen. This is an unusual view because it's from the back of Cavern Cascade. You can walk behind the cascade and see the gorge as the entrance looms forward there. You can see the trails. And I used a flash on the falls, which kind of freezes some of the water. Also, I used a slow shutter speed so that you can see some of the movement of the water, and then the flash creates a kind of a freezing motion of the water. So you get a little bit of a combination of the technical aspects of what photography can create for you. It's fun to see what cameras can do, and the flashes and no flashes or what have you. The next picture would be a freeze motion picture of Lower Taganek in the spring. And this is the, Zach and I were talking earlier about how I choose slower shutter speeds, which creates the motion and smooth water, to the faster shutter speeds where the water is frozen. And the shutter speed I used for this one, let's see, I have that in the calendar. Let's see, that's in March, I believe. The shutter speed for that one was 1/1000th of a second. And cameras have even faster shutter speeds than that, but that seemed to freeze the water just nice for a nice, pleasing effect. I like the way this one looks. Pretty happy with how that looked. Naturally, there's more to the falls than this, but I had to make a choice and decided, well, the calendar's square. I got to crop it and use the square. That's always a choice that you make creatively as you're making a calendar. You say, well, calendars are typically square. There's also some horizontal ones out there. And my first calendars were horizontal, but square seems to be the standard now. So I choose and I crop where it makes sense, and it looks good this way. So I'm pretty happy with it. And the last picture is of a little spot. It's on private land. And this is called, well, by the locals, Greenville Gorge or Greenville Pool, as I call it. It doesn't really have an official name because it's on private land, and it used to be owned by a family named Green. And so I heard about this at a party. A guy says we were calling this Greenville, and this is where it is. And I said, okay, it's off Depot Road. And of course, if you go in there, it's with your own risk because it's private land. It's posted, and I'm very careful when I'm in there. But it's just so gorgeous. I couldn't hide from it any longer. So there's 4 evidenced waterfalls right here in this view, and there's many more above and below this in there. But this is one of the most interesting views of that gorge. So that's the one I chose for this calendar this year. So that's all I have for images. Like to open it up for any questions anybody may have. Thank you. Thanks for listening to me ramble on.
How long does it take to put a calendar together? I mean, have you started next year's already?
Oh gosh, yes. I think I started in my mind as soon as the one is done. And it takes many hours to do it. I think about what I'm going to put on the back cover, what's going to be the front cover. I think about all the images I'm going to choose for the calendar. I choose and re-choose all over again. It's quite a compulsion I have for being picky about which picture I choose, and the photos have to kind of work as a compositional on their own. They also have to work as a combination. All 12 have to kind of have a homogeneity. Don't know how I determine that, but it's kind of a thing I look at and I feel as I see them. So I would say, how long does it take? Well, the calendar generally comes out sometime in May or June. And since I've been starting mine since probably, I don't know, November, December of the previous year, it probably takes about 5-6 months, little pieces. You know, I don't work on it every day, maybe an hour here and there, maybe sometimes 3 or 4 hours. Takes a long time to do what I do. And I like it. I like doing that. If anybody said I had to do this for a living, they would not do it because it just takes way too many hours. I don't log the number of hours. So that's why nobody else does it, apparently. It just takes a lot of time, but I do enjoy it.
Do you
Would you
always use
ever-
new pictures for each calendar, or do you do some repeat photos?
That's a good question. If you've been watching the calendars over the years, you'll know that occasionally there are some repeats. But not often. I take new photos, and I hope to use new photos every year. That's my goal. It isn't always that way. Sometimes it's good to dig up a photo I've used before, because people like it, and it's a recognizable image, and it's a loved image. So sometimes it doesn't hurt to look at it again, rework it a little bit maybe, and use it once again. Maybe change the cropping this time, maybe change a little bit of the choices of the color balance a little. But typically there's new photos every year. I take hundreds of pictures when I even go to one location, and I won't use them all that year. I'll use them another year maybe. So they're not all taken every year. Some of them are going to be put in the vault until I decide to use them. Yeah, it's good to try to use new ones every year, but you can't. Sometimes you just have to choose what you've got, and they work. They're all pretty contemporary.
How do you catalog all of these photographs?
Great question. My catalog is not like what a librarian would probably do. I catalog them by year. So if I take a series of photos, they're all in a year that I took them. In my head, I kind of remember roughly what year I took certain pictures. And so I'll go back to that year and I'll look at the names, the date that I took them, and say, yeah, there's a good fall picture. What did I take in the fall in 2008 or something, and I'll go back and, well, that was a nice one. So that's kind of how I do it. It's by the year and by the name of the falls. It isn't a very, I would say, librarian sort of way to do it, but it almost lets me think that I'm out there in the wild creating the pictures again by searching through them that way. And it's a process. It's my process. And I think it kind of works for me.
Well, I really admire your process and your product.
Thank you.
And I'm Zach's dad, and he's been getting a calendar every year for as long as you've been making them, I think.
Thank you.
And so have my other two kids. So I came in late. Sorry if I ask anything that was already
That's okay.
addressed.
That's fine.
Are you the sole selector of which ones you choose, or do you have a board of others whose opinions you take?
Great question. Some years ago, when I hired a designer who used to design for a major magazine, he would contribute to my choice in a couple of instances. He would say, this one isn't strong enough, and try this, and like that. I do listen to my designer that I've chosen for this project. She will make some comments on certain images I've gotten in there, like the cover wasn't the cover that we see for 2022. It wasn't that. It was something else. And she suggested another image that I had that was stronger. And I love what we have for the cover. In fact, everybody who says it, this is perfect. So I listen to her, and that's it. I don't have a board. It'd be too complicated if I did, I think. I'm pretty much it. And once in a great while, I get people that contribute to an idea. I keep thinking that maybe it's better if I do get a lot of other voices in there, but you get too many and it gets too confusing, and it may turn out to be way worse than what it would be if I just use my heart and my soul and say.
What is your press run at this point? How many do you make a year?
Right now, it's 4,600. That's been fairly consistent over the last couple of years. I've printed a few more than that in previous years, but I would like to print more, and I think I may choose a few more this year because I think COVID is kind of dying back. When the COVID year first hit, I didn't think it was going to be as affecting as it was, but I had a lot of calendars left over. It may be because I didn't want to get out there among people that might have had COVID, and of course there wasn't a vaccination that first year. So we were always wearing masks, and you didn't know if you wanted to touch people or how close you wanted to get to people. You didn't know if people were out and about buying things from the stores. So I was left over with a lot of them the previous year, and I chose fewer calendars this past year, and I almost ran out, which is a good sign. I don't mind running out. It's good to know that people are in demand for the calendar. They were much in demand this year. So 4,600 includes what I print for the customers who buy them for their advertising to give out to their customers.
What do you do with the leftover calendars?
Well, they've been, there's different years I've done different things. One of my friends tried to talk the schools into taking them to use for classroom projects for elementary age kids. And that's certainly a wonderful idea. I don't care how they're used once they're outdated. The other thing we do is just we'll recycle them and take them back to the printer, and they make new paper with them.
Where do you print them?
They've always been printed by a local printer, Cayuga Press, which is based in Ithaca, New York, and they're no longer called Cayuga Press. They've been bought out by another company, and they're now located in Liverpool. So they're printed in New York State, and I like to use local services. I like to keep New York State people working. It could be a lot cheaper if I had them printed in China, Japan, or wherever they print them. But QMC is the name of the new company that's been changed from Cayuga Press, and they're located in Liverpool, New York. And they've got one big, huge press that prints both sides of the sheet at the same time. And then they can package those up in rapid sequence with their folding and stapling machines and trimming machines. It's amazing. I've seen the process. I like the whole process of the calendar, all the way from choosing the pictures to the printing to the distribution. It all amazes me. It all is exciting to me. And I for a while, I was watching every time there was a press run, I'd watch them actually print the calendar. It's kind of exciting to see. It's not necessary now, but are we almost done?
No, I'm sorry. I'm waving to my niece.
Oh, hi, niece. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Did
Have
you,
you-
oh, go ahead, Gary.
Hi, Priscilla.
Hi, Gina. Are you saying go ahead, Priscilla?
Oh, okay. Did you use film when you started your career?
Good question. The first calendar in 2004 had some film images that I translated over to digital and did some special cropping and color balancing with them. One of the first pictures I used in the calendar was a really lovely fall picture of Taganic Falls that was taken years before, but I never really done much with it, and I loved it so much. And it was definitely a film picture. I think on that first calendar, the first pictures were about half of them were film photos that I translated over to digital, because of course the printing business has been digital for, a lot of years now.
Yeah.
So, but from then on, it's become digital. Yeah, good question. Jerry, did you have a
Have
question?
you ever considered expanding your pictorial territory further east or further west?
Yes, I have. I thought about doing a waterfalls of the United States calendar, and I've been collecting some of those waterfalls over the years. I work part-time for American Airlines, and we get to travel a little bit here and there. And I've got a couple of photographs of some really cool waterfalls out west. I got one of Multnomah Falls, which is in Oregon. And I've got one of, what's the other falls I have in Utah? It's not as good as it could be probably. And I don't have quite enough of the different falls all over the country to say that I've got a good variety yet, but I've considered it.
So do you find yourself leaving at 4 a.m. in the summer mornings and
Yep.
lingering around parks to dusk to catch these special the magic the golden hours of?
I've gotten up really early in the morning, headed over to Chittenango Falls to catch the morning light on Chittenango. That's a beautiful falls. It's just outside of the Finger Lakes region. However, to me, I consider it a Finger Lakes waterfalls. You know, there are certain counties that are considered Finger Lakes counties, but you know, Madison County, okay, so it's just over the border. And I've even put, you know, Niagara Falls in the calendar as a little one in the grid, because I think it's a major falls, and that they deserve to be noticed. So yeah, early morning is fun. I once went to a basketball game with a friend, and rather than go home, we were in Binghamton, I think, and I drove all the way to Letchworth Park, and I slept in my car for an hour or two until sunrise and took pictures of the sunrise at Letchworth Park.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I do what I feel is necessary. And sometimes those are the best pictures. The sunrise over and with the mist over the water, and that stuff is just a heavenly experience.
That's a long drive. Binghamton to
Yeah, it's a couple
Letchworth.
hours, 2.5 hours from here. Yeah, you got to make the effort.
No,
what
from Binghamton, little John from Binghamton.
Yeah, a little bit. But you just catch 81 to 80, 86, and then away you go.
There you go.
Well, I appreciate the lesser known, smaller ones quite a bit. I've gone out hunting for pictures you've had in the calendar just because I wanted to see them myself. So
Yeah.
keep
Like which one do you know which one in particular you were drawn to?
well, Truxton.
Oh yeah.
There's a couple over that. I mean, Chittenango is not a minor one, but I hadn't been there until I'd
Yeah.
seen it in the calendar, and then there's a couple on the way home that we hit.
Yeah, there's Pratt's Falls in Onondaga County.
That's the other one. Yep.
There's the Truxton, that's the Tinker Falls, which is a
Right.
little falls. It's no bigger than some of the other little falls that we see around here, 60 feet up, thereabouts. But still a notable place because it's got a good look to it. It's got a good vegetation and good rock formations, and I'm going to feature that one in next year's calendar again, Tinker Falls, in the winter. I took a great one to get today of Ithaca Falls at Zach's request, and I may use that in next year's calendar. I don't know. I have to look through and see how they all blend and work together. Any other questions? Guys, you got good questions today. My goodness.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you very much. It's fun to visit with you all, and I'm glad you enjoyed the images and the talk.
Yeah. Thank you.
You could do
Thank you.
waterfalls of New York State.
Excuse me?
Waterfalls of New York State.
Yeah, that would be the next one. Because there's some good waterfalls down towards New York City in the Hudson Valley region. Bushkill Falls, if I'm not mistaken, is that in New York? I don't know. Yeah, Niagara Falls would be in there as well because it's a New York State waterfall, and there's more waterfalls in the Adirondack region too that are good to shoot. Yeah, we're putting all those ideas together. There's something about the Finger Lakes, though. It's a very marketable
Yeah.
and unique idea
Yeah.
for those people who lived here. And New York State is fine. I like it, but I don't know what there's some draw about the Finger Lakes. There's just something special and unique and mysterious, maybe, and especially the wineries and the that all that stuff is a very special piece of our you might say culture. It's almost a culture in itself.
I wanted to tell you, 2 years ago, prior to COVID, I had a student that I had worked with when I was in the Peace Corps. He was studying in Worcester, came for Thanksgiving and brought a friend of his from Egypt. And we took him around to a couple waterfalls, and being an Egyptian, he had never seen any waterfalls of any type.
Oh, no, of course not.
And it really blew his mind. And so the next year I sent him a copy of that year's calendar, and
Cool.
it was really meaningful for him. So
That's
thank
fun.
you, and keep them coming.
I will. I totally will, guys. Thank you for your input. I appreciate it. And we can talk more about it if you want in the future, or just about photography in general. I take pictures of people too. I've done portraits and weddings and bar mitzvahs and commercial pictures. I'm currently going to be doing a group shot for a Merrill Lynch office with a green background, the green screen, so that you can take the people and put them in any background you want, and that's kind of fun too. So anyway, it's been a pleasure to chat with you all. Sorry that we didn't get the chance in person, but hopefully when COVID kind of winds down, we can do this stuff in person. It's much more fun. I can show you the actual printed sheets. You can touch them. I saved them from some of the older press runs. It's always fun to see what physically goes on when they print some of these calendars.
Cool. I'll put you on the list for follow up post-COVID
great.
follow up. There's
Post-COVID
a long list of people actually, but
I bet there are.
thank you again, and we'll catch up at some point.
Thank you. Nice to
Thank
meet
you.
you all. Nice to meet you, Zach,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Nelson. Thank
And
you.
we'll have to
Thank
go
you.
by Trip
Bye,
Hammer to
everybody.
see your exhibit.
Go take pictures yourself. Get out there and shoot. Look at the water. Bye, everybody.
Thank
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a
How
good
long
day.
is your exhibit up at Trip Hammer?
It'll be there until the end of this month. And then after that, it goes down to the city center. Same
Oh, okay,
store,
cool.
CTB,
Oh,
Trip,
yeah, great.
Ithaca Bakery, but in the city center for March. So
Terrific. Thank you.
whatever you catch it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.